Today we're going to be talking about identifying disappointment. You know, gifted and creative women often have expectations for themselves and expectations put on them by others that they take into their spirits and into their minds of what they're supposed to do. Today, that's a discussion we're going to have because you see, so many times our own disappointments are self-generated of expectations and experiences that we just take on without thought. And so sometimes taking the time to identify why we're disappointed, what's disappointing about a situation, and what were our expectations about that situation help us to identify how to set different boundaries on what we expect of ourselves, of others, and what we allow them to expect of us. Good morning. This is the Women of Dare Whimsy. I'm Sweetie Berry, and I'd like to introduce you to Gail Roddy. Gail is a playwright. She's an author, she's a blogger, and she works with Calling All Women to the Well. It's a conversation about bringing the wellspring of life among women. You know, in ancient times, we gathered at the well daily, several times a day, to get refreshing water. And Gail's writing, Gail's speaking, Gail's plays are exactly that. They're refreshing water. Gail, talk to me about how you see disappointment happening with the women at the well and the girls that you've spoken with recently. I know you've been in schools, and I know Monday night you were with young authors. How does disappointment come into your conversations with them?
Well, it comes in quite often, especially with the very young women. The event on Monday night was teen women and one young man as well. They've created an anthology in a book that they write about their life experiences to date. And of course, since they're adolescents, it's very eye-opening, lots of drama, as we all remember from keeping journals in adolescence. But it was also beautiful because they are truly writing from their heart. They were very shy. They thought they would be critiqued. There were 18 of them, but only about 12 actually wanted to get up and read. So there is that disappointment that they think that once I open my heart, people will judge me and criticize me, and so I don't want to go there. So better I stay back and not show my true self and my true heart, except when I write, and then I can kind of hide out. So their disappointment is that they think they will be critiqued harshly. And we gifted girls experience that as well. We know a lot of things, we have a lot of experiences, we are able to delve deeply into things, and we think that people will criticize us and judge us. Often we're right, but we have to do it anyway because it's on our hearts to speak the things we know.
Oh, those are such rich answers. And you know, the truth of our existence the last few weeks is that judgment does happen. Publicly, we're seeing people through comments and videos and flash cameras and iPhones be able to capture moments out of sequence, sometimes without warning or without a proper audience listening to the intent of who was speaking or doing what they were doing. Now, media has such a huge developmental role, and now another thing gifted and talented girls and women have to worry about. Because you can make anything look like anything with a quick video and application to edit it out and put it back in. And that's if they're just, you know, capturing you. Now, here's the thing. Self-esteem also says that you have that ability to say and be who you are without fear. But disappointment, and particularly those who are disappointed in us, can help us learn to be fearful of being ourselves. And for me, that comes about with boundaries. You know, as a teacher, I talk to students about your writing is from your spirit, from your soul, from your mind, and it is yours. Good, bad, indifferent, complicated, simple, beginner, or advanced, it's a piece of you. And who you allow to share that story with, much like Brene Brown says, that people have to earn the right to hear your personal story of your life. I believe that people have to earn the right to have opinions on your writing. And so for 19 girls to stand up at a publisher's event this week in Minneapolis, that says that they had the self-esteem or the trust and the experience of their writing to put it in paper and allow somebody else to read it. That's a big deal. It can lead to all kinds of disappointments. But likewise, the disappointments can be minimized when we are very aware of the boundary of first, who are we seeking approval from? You know, that's a big deal. Who are you seeking approval from? And what is the disappointment tied to? Is it tied to someone's approval of you as a person or of your actions? You know, one of the things that I continually battle with girls of all ages, 5 to 50 to 95, is that we may not like someone's action, but that has nothing to do with valuing the person. Every person has value. I may be disappointed with my child if they don't perform at the level I know that they can perform. But that has nothing to do with that child's value to me. That can never be changed as my students, nor my clients, nor the people I work with as learners. Their value as a human spirit never changes to me. Sometimes their actions may disappoint. And sometimes the biggest fight I have to fight is their own disappointment in themselves for not being perfect from beginning to end. They expect to open a book and be able to read a new language in 24 hours. They expect to open a computer and be able to do a new piece of software or program a new level of computer drive in, no time flat. That's a gifted perspective. Gifted kids just want to get it. They don't want to learn it. They want to get it, whether they're young, medium, or old. And we are so frustrated when we can't do it eloquently the first time. I am so pleased that Dr. Edith Johnston is with us today. She is a helping professional, and she does a lot of classes with missing and action gifted kids, multi-talents. And one of the reasons I say kids is I think of kids of all ages. She works with children, but she really works with adults for the most part. But, missing in action is a hard place to be, and a multi-talent is a hard place to be. When you're a gifted, there's just so many things that we're interested in. And one of the things Dr. Edith helps is behavioral and academic and life planning as she works with courses, colleges, as well as a speaker, and on her website, howtoinlife.com, to help people get resources to get past all the complications of being a multi-talent and a gifted and talented thinker. Good morning, Dr. Edith.
Good morning, sweetie. Thank you for letting me be part of this Dare Whimsy group of all these talented women. Disappointment for me is to look at, first of all, we need to know that experiencing our emotions is okay. And the vast experience of emotions is okay. Anything from joy to that disappointment, which then can go on to devastation. And so it's okay, but those are also messages for us to listen to the experience that we're having and look at then, where's that experience coming from? Where is that emotion coming from? How do we want to own this emotion? And how do we want to express it? Having the emotion and how we express it are two different things, and we have choice there. So let us know and discover that emotion we're having. And this morning we're talking about disappointment. And many a times if we look at disappointment, it's coming from those things that Sweetie was alluding to and Gail too, is expectations. Is it our expectations? Is it someone else's expectations? We look at the expectation of a multi-talented or gifted individual, and we look at the fact that, yeah, we want to get it. We don't want to learn it. We should know it. We don't have to figure out how. We also are perfection. Everybody else figures that we don't need any help. We can just do it ourselves. After all, we're multi-talented. We're gifted. We can figure it all out ourselves. Not looking at that first and most, as we were talking earlier, is that we are human. We are human beings with this experience. And this experience is okay. So how do we want to express it? By understanding it, we can overcome the possible tendency to take it to the next step of devastation and say, okay, disappointed. Why am I disappointed? Is it something that I was wanting to seek approval for? Is it something I am disappointing others because of their expectations of me? Is it my expectations of myself? And are those realistic? What choice do I have in being able to express, yes, this is not maybe the best I could do. Maybe this is not the best experience for me at the moment, but I'm going to pay attention and choose how will I express this disappointment and then move on with life. Experience it in the moment and move forward.
I love that. Part of it when we're talking about identifying disappointments, there's an old adage that says that if we do the same things and expect the same outcomes, it is the definition of insanity. So part of what I work with gifted kids and adults, and particularly entrepreneurs, is if your expectation is identified, then we can better break it down to figure out where the disappointment's happening. You know, some people, it's in wage earning. They think that if they had more money, life would be different. And then sometimes, shazam, things happen and they get more money and life isn't different. For others, the expectation may be when they reach a certain weight, their problems will go away or their social skills will improve. For oftentimes with students, it's about power. When they become class president or when they make cheerleader or when they're on the first chair of the band line and their first trumpet, it will be different. But our daily experiences just don't change a lot unless we do. And disappointment comes when we have unrealistic expectations for ourselves, or we allow someone else's expectations to be spoken to us that are unrealistic. Now, I'm very technically oriented. I can fix things if they're in the website. I can write, particularly with WordPress, I can write code to do whatever I probably need to do. And it's something I've spent a lot of time learning to do. First, I was really terrible at it. I would just copy paste from, an HTML source and then try and figure out why it worked. And later, now I can actually write that as a language I understand because I've spent enough time studying it. And so many people love to say from their expectation, I'll just do something because it's easy for me. And sometimes that leads to disappointment because it's a disrespect. It's a disrespect of the time that it took to learn that. It's not just easy for me because I'm smart, because I am smart. You are too. But it's easy to me because I put in the effort to learn the skills to make the outcome that I can do now, which is to fix the problem. And sometimes we have to stop and help other people understand it's not easy because we're gifted or talented. It's easy because we've experienced it long enough to do it, And that disappointment sometimes comes for me when I think that people discount the fact that I have to learn too, that I have to have boundaries in my life, I have to have times in my life, I have to set boundaries, I have to make money, I have to make beds, I have to feed children like other people in their life, regardless of whether they're gifted and talented in that area. And so many times the people who are truly gifted and talented in an area are the people who put in the work. And each one of us are capable of learning what we set out to do. Some of us faster, some of us slower, some of us may have more natural talent. But the disappointment comes when everybody thinks that it's just easy, and that includes myself. I think something new should be easy. I see Lucianne Mall has joined us. Lucianne Mall is a biblical counselor, and she writes at luciannmall.com. She does a lot of training and gives people and hearts hope, and a lot of hers is biblically based. But today I wanted to bring Lucy into the space because disappointment also can lead to depression. It can lead to misplaced trust in where you're expecting things to happen. And she's going to bring a different perspective in about disappointment and how to deal with it from a counseling perspective, as well as what she sees. She's a mom of some adopted children that are, teens to adults now, and she has a lot of clients as well who go through disappointments. Lucy, share with us your component of how to identify disappointment and how to take it apart to get to a healthier place.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, great.
Great. Yeah, I had trouble getting in. My computer is on the fritz. Disappointment could be described as we feel it first, but it's coming from someplace. It can be felt as confusion, as sadness, as grief, and as others were saying, as unfulfilled expectations. And at the heart of that is our ruling desires. What is ruling our desire? Is it that we want to make more money or lose weight or go on a certain type of vacation somewhere, or we want our kids to act a certain way and they're not? And so in addition to it leading to depression, behind a lot of that is anger. We're not getting what we want, and so we feel wronged. And that's part of all of that plays into disappointment. But what happens with disappointment is if that ruling desire, if we don't align ourselves with the truth of our circumstances, the truth of who we are, the truth of who God is, if we don't align ourselves with that, sadly, that turns into discontentment, and that is more anger, more self-pity, more bitterness, more self-righteousness, and that can lead us down this slope, this very sad slope to despair, seeing no way out, giving up on responsibilities, and so on. And at its worst, and it's horrible, and I've seen it, as I'm sure everybody has, or either personally or through friends or in the media, it can lead to destructiveness. And that's a critical spirit hostility and impulsivity to the max, so much so where that can lead to self-harm, even to suicide. So it's so important that we deal with our disappointment when we sense it as disappointment, and we ask ourselves, what is our ruling desire? And is that ruling desire in line with who I am and who God made me to be?
Thanks for that, Lucy. You know, I agree completely with you that a ruling desire is something we have to evaluate, because so often disappointment is built upon a desire to please, a desire to learn, a desire to win, a desire to compete, a desire to be seen, to be validated. And those are important parts of what's going on, but it's also very important to really understand the all or nothing part of it. You know, they often say to me, it's all over, it's all over. There's no more anything, whatever they're facing, homework or the ball game or making the team or making enough money on their entrepreneurism. And that's the first clue, because if we're experiencing disappointment and our first statement out is it's all or never or all or nothing, then we probably have a very short perspective and we're into evaluation mode and not into problem-solving mode. You know, one of the things that goes with identifying disappointments is identifying problem-solving areas we can learning from the mysterious experience. The mysterious experience that says I put X amount of effort into it and it didn't turn out the way I thought. I like people to go into scientific mode and to say, well, then let's go be CSI with it. Let's talk about some components of what those decisions were so that you have some awareness and perhaps some insight into how that can be different. Sometimes that difference is something you need to do in actions. Sometimes that difference is something you need to do in boundaries with other people or time. Sometimes that difference is identifying the speed at which we do it. Someone wanted to get 100,000 uniques on their blog the other day, and they wanted to do it with no budget, very little writing, and very little push out on any of the social channels. Well, they didn't know many people either, so that was an unrealistic expectation, and it was going to lead to definite disappointment with the methodology they were trying. You know, we just sometimes discount our actions are responsible for our outcomes. And the truth is, every outcome is based on our actions and those we align ourselves with. You know, if you're hanging out with a group that's always negative Nellies, then the chances are high the outcome of you is going to be you're either infiltrated with negative Nellies or you're going to become a negative Nellie. You know, what we surround ourselves with in our thinking, as well as our experience, as well as our absolute presence, affects our outcomes. And so in that identifying disappointment, sometimes we need to see, is the disappointment in the action, the reaction, or the way it was received by others or ourselves? I find that to be so very valid in dealing with truly identifying disappointment. I'm very disappointed that I'm not a size 6 this July 1st. But the truth is, if I evaluated that, I probably made some choices along the way that kept me from being a size 6 July 1st. And if I started on June 29th to become size 6, I set some unrealistic expectations of myself to get there 2 days later. Some of us need to identify the ongoing patterns of disappointment in our life, because guess what? Patterns are real for everybody. We have seasons of things we repeat because they're familiar in our life. We have go-tos in behavior that sometimes are for us and sometimes destruct us. And often we don't see those patterns of choices, and we don't see those patterns of skill sets or escape sets, as I like to call them. I have some friends who have a set of escapes, and when they come against things that are not comfortable or things that are new, they may put in one of their mechanisms for escape, and sometimes that leads to continuing disappointment if it's not a healthy perspective or a mechanism. One of the things that I would love Gail to speak with us about is how much, as she's emerged this year, she did something very new. She wrote a play and performed it publicly. And she was used to going to lunch with friends and gatherings with groups. And I know that we've discussed in outside places that in this birthing process of something new, she had to shelter her mind, her heart, and her experience, as well as the wisdom she listened to, because she had to be protective of this baby, the play that she was writing. In fact, this whole new side of her business. Talk to me about what that was like as you identified the disappointing things the first few times you went out and offered to tell people that you knew that you were going to do something new, and how disappointing was that, probably unintentionally from friends and family and acquaintances, when you said you're willing to do actions that were entirely out of the norm of what they knew you as?
That is an interesting question, sweetie. As I recall, looking back over the last year that I created this play and have been performing it, it's interesting. I didn't get so much verbal things from people, but because I'm an intuitive, because I'm a gifted girl, I would get feelings from people, and those feelings were that, wow, we know Gail is smart, we know she's capable, we're not surprised she's doing this. However, I could never do that. She is such a better person than I am. So I was bombarded with all of this smiles, and yet behind the smiles I could feel people diminishing themselves. That was very disconcerting for me, to think that people would feel that because I'm doing something, especially to be 62. I got that from a lot of my peers, is she's starting a whole new career. What's the matter with me? I better get going. I better do something wonderful and vibrant like that. That was hard on my heart, to think that people would diminish themselves with me when we've shared nothing but love and companionship with one another. So I kind of had to distance myself from that. I had to do it sometimes physically with some people, but what I found that I did that seemed to work very well, and perhaps someone else can use this or relate to this. I had a friend just recently, I've known her for 40 years, she's about to turn 65, and she said to me, I know I make you mad sometimes. I know I make you mad a lot. And she said it as though somehow that means I should think less of her. And I said, you do. Sometimes I do get very upset that you make me angry. And I'm thinking about what Sweetie said earlier about her kids. And so but I said to her, I never stop loving you. I never stop respecting who you are as a woman, as a human being. Boy, does that shut all that negativity down.
Oh, it's such a beautiful thing to affirm, that because I don't agree with your actions doesn't change how I feel about you, the person. You know, it's just so valuable, too, to realize that when we make changes in our life, when we grow, when we take on new habits or hobbies, sometimes that instills fear or left-outness from our friends, or maybe even pressure, as your friend felt, that if I do it, they have to do it, too. I have to be very aware when I'm identifying my goals that I also identify to my friends that I'm not disappointed if they don't come along, that I'm sharing what I plan to do, but that in no way, shape, or form puts pressure on them to do. I see that in weight loss. I've lost 55 pounds this year, and I have friends who stop wanting to go hang out, to go pick up a cupcake or something on the way by because, one, they're trying to be respectful of the fact I'm not going by to pick up cupcakes anymore. But the second end of it is it was a little guilting for some of them to say, gosh, you made a goal in December and you did it. You know, that makes you feel a little done in if you had the same goal. But things happen in everybody's life. I've had to restart goals. I've had to back up goals. I have to realign goals. And sometimes I made goals like I bought a car I wanted, and it wasn't even the goal when I got it. I saw Sarah Cook pop in, and I don't know if she's still here with us. I'm having trouble seeing right this minute, but she is in the middle of a move, so we're thankful if she gets here. She has so much knowledge as a direct sales leader and understanding how to deal with the psychology of disappointment and identifying what's disappointing the person that's keeping them stalling. Because, we do that. We stall. We self-sabotage. We do some things that we sometimes don't take the time to identify why we're disappointed, and we don't engage that truth in our lives. One of the things that happens are deadlines, and sometimes we miss deadlines, and sometimes we miss goals, and sometimes we miss even starting, and we have to identify that when it happens at the deadline, because there's not much avoiding it when somebody else did it. If I show up 3 weeks later after we started working out and she's looking buff and I'm not, then I can't deny that somebody else did actions that mattered. And I personally always want to say those little bitty actions don't matter. Those little bitty actions are the building blocks of our lives, whether it's making the bed. I said in a video this morning, the little bitty actions matter. If I get up and every single time we eat at the table, I then put the dishes in the dishwasher instead of putting them on the counter at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I don't have 35 pieces of dirty dishes in my space. It matters for the kempness of my kitchen. And likewise, our strength goals on our physical body, our financial goals, are all made by little bitty goals done consistently. And those disappointments are much the same way. We overcome disappointments by identifying small parts of it that build big pictures. I always like the concept that big things are important, but small things matter. And disappointment and identifying disappointments, that's particularly true. Not all one thing happened to make us disappointed. There are many components: expectations, alignments, boundaries, actions, learnings, practice. All of those things are involved in identifying why disappointments happen, as well as perceptions, our expectations, and our guidance, and who we go to either echo to us that, yes, we were not meeting that expectation, or to affirm, you know what, that's tough. That's a tough break. Because our community, our tribe, the people we allow to speak into our lives really matters, and the values we set our lives by really matter. We're about out of time for this week's Between Us Girls. We are the Women of Dare Whimsy. Each week on Wednesday, we come together to talk about how we face the world as gifted and creative women. It's a place to come and release, restore, and relax into being yourselves as a gifted and creative woman. On Thursdays, we have a website at darewhimsy.com. Each of our writers and our speakers, and several others who are not here to be here today, write what we call the sister post. We take today's topic, which was identifying disappointments, and we talk about how we deal with that in our own lives, or in our business lives, or in the lives of the things that we do. In those posts, I'm sure that you'll find someone that you relate to, and you may wish to follow them home at the end of their post where it says, read more. Through your comments, we'd like to follow you home too, to where you write or where you share opinions. Your comments are a lifeline to us. We love to hear what you have to say, and we learn from you too. None of us seek to be gurus here. We seek to share information. We are parents, we are singles, we are young children, we are teens, we are older women. We are all different ages of gifted and talented women. And we're glad you're here with us today. We hope you'll join us next Wednesday at 10 a.m. Central Time, or through the archives on our website at darewhimsy.com. Our Google Plus page is google.com/darewhimsy, and we'll look forward to knowing you. Thank you for coming this week. We enjoyed our time with you.